You know, I like to make props, as in props from movies, games and other media, something life-sized that you can wear or equip. You know, props. The problem with props is that they usually take me a long time to make, and this one took me more time than I wanted, but let's just start from the beginning, shall we? A new Resident Evil game came out a few months ago, and in case you never played it or even saw it, it's very good. One of the antagonists in the game is one Victor Gideon, who wears a particularly interesting headpiece. Mask, visor, helmet, viewport? I don't really know how to call it. But anyway, that is what I'm building here. I started with a bicycle helmet, which I sliced in half. Then I marked the lines where I wanted to cut off redundant fragments so the shape would look like those front plates. A note here, I'm not aiming for perfect screen accuracy, but rather a piece closely resembling the one seen in the game. I'm working with junk after all, so I'll take some artistic liberties. Some pieces will look different and some measurements will be off, but that's not important for a cosplay level prop. Stay with me till the end of the video to see the actual cosplay part. Anyway, if you ever wondered how a bicycle helmet looks like when you cut all the styrofoam from it, well, not much. It's just compressed styrofoam and the outer layer is some kind of a thin laminate. Nothing special, but man, cutting this thing out was a hassle. I'm still picking up the rubbish from it, but hey look, it's actually a great material for rocks or damaged road or something. Gonna save that for later. Also, be sure to wear a mask if you're gonna do something like that too. The dust gets everywhere. Like sand.
I don't like sand.
I used my heat gun in hopes to melt some of the rough edges, but it only made it more coarse and it did stink a bit, so good ventilation is also required. In the end, it's gonna get covered up anyway, so I just left that for now and moved on to the next piece. This bowl is supposedly made from eco-plastic. Don't really know what that means, but it was fairly easy to cut and it bends quite well when submitted to heat. It kinda looks like those one-use spoons or forks you get in food trucks. Hey, here's a fun little game you can play at home. Guess how many times I dropped something while making this thing? Write your picks in the comments now and see if you were right at the end of this video. Anyway, after cutting the shape, which I eyeballed by the way, and bending it a bit, I tried it with the other piece and... it was too small. Why don't I know how to make things properly? I cut another one, bigger this time, and it turned out mostly the right size. I just needed to trim some of the sides and it was ready for install. But first I did separate the plates from the bike helmet to resemble the original a little more closely. After that I took some EVA foam and glued it on the inside of those plates so the glue would stick better. In hindsight this wasn't really necessary, but it also didn't hurt and it gave the plates some bulk as well as hidden some of that uneven surface. I used hot glue to even out the rim. There are those weird shapes in the center, so I cut those in that same foam. They could have been a bit bigger, but it's still okay, I guess. And after all that, I glued all the parts together and I could proceed to the next part. From that same bowl I cut two other pieces, bent them a bit with a heat gun and glued to the helmet. For the right ocular, I used old swimming goggles, which I trimmed with my rotary tool so it fits the curve of the helmet. Remember that? I saved this piece from my Podracer build. I like to have some functionality in my builds, even if it's a small feature. It's like with toys. When you buy, let's say, a figure, but with no articulation, sure, it will probably look cool, but there's not much more to it. So you wiggle it in your hand for a while and then place on the shelf to collect dust. As for me, I like to add a little something that you could fidget with for a while and then put on the shelf to collect dust. It's a condition, okay? Anyway, this thing has a stop mechanism. I guess it's called a Geneva drive or something similar, which is perfect for that rotating scopes. I initially thought to mount a fidget spinner on top of it, but it's too big, so if you can find a fitting piece, make one yourself. I did mine from a peanut butter jar lid. Again, I eyeballed the shape and cut it. It turned out okay this time. Once it was done, I began making those 3 aforementioned scopes. Like I said before, I'm not aiming for screen accuracy and I want to use things that I already have, so I picked some pieces from my junk collection in hopes that it will all magically come together. Right now. If you don't know what you're doing, just trust the process, and there is much trust with this one. Like seriously, this whole thing holds together by some CA glue, some hot glue, and a lot of goodwill. Anyway, the first visor will be replaced later. As for the other 2, I just joined some circular objects like lids, plastic rings, and flashlight pieces. Overall, I wanted it to look the part in like, let's say 70%? Yeah, that's a good number. Or from like 2 meters away. Yeah. As in not only good, but good enough, as the classic would say. High north of the border, Adam Senpai. Yeah, and here's that smallest scope that I said it's gonna be replaced. I just thought the texture of this piece looks more interesting, even if it's not necessarily look like the original. Sue me. With all 3 scopes done, I made a hole in the goggle, filled it with EVA foam and glued the round mechanism in, followed by the actual scopes. To securely mount the whole ocular to the helmet, I drilled some holes, glued some toothpicks in them, and impaled the ocular smeared with some epoxy glue. That's not coming off ever, I hope. I did struggle with the left ocular though. It has a peculiar shape and it was pretty hard to recreate. I tried using a handle from a spray bottle, a plastic egg that was a makeshift shaker, which as it turned out I unnecessarily wasted. And finally a dish soap bottle, which I cut the top off and glued to an EVA foam with copious amounts of hot glue. I inserted another bottle lid inside. I think there was an idea behind that. Yeah, but I must have forgot it or changed my mind because I closed it off with a vintage film canister cap. Remember those? You probably can't get them anywhere nowadays, but back then they were everywhere. Anyway, I placed a piece of that fidget spinner from earlier on top of it and another piece that was a toilet gel cap in its previous life. Then I glued all of that to the mask. While at it, I glued some thicker EVA foam on the sides so the headpiece would actually hold itself on the temples. I could have used some regular 9-volt batteries, I really could, but that's not crafting. You make stuff yourself, that's why you're watching crafting videos. Anyway, for this I used some pieces from a one-used vape, EVA foam, a pen cap, and that small thing that I don't know what it is and where did I get it from. But luckily I had those things in a set of 2, and you probably can imagine how hard it is to find 2 pieces of the same kind while crafting from junk. So I married them together in this weird polygamic union and added some connectors or terminals made from a good old plastic tubing. Note that I'm using a lot of baking powder, which combined with CA glue makes a nicely tight bond. Once both batteries were done, I glued them in place and added some masking tape to, well, tape them to the helmet. And last but not least, I added some garden wire to act as wires, connecting the batteries to whatever Gideon hides under that mask. I don't want to know. To start greeblifying the headpiece, I took another vape element and glued a plastic rectangle with a gemstone on top of it. Then I found this piece, which probably was a part of a strap mount or something, but it coincidentally was shaped much like the piece in the center of the mask. After adding some more smaller pieces, I glued it in place and added a thin stripe of EVA foam to hide the gap. There are many rivets holding the thing together, and I initially wanted to use actual rivets to do just that. Bought some rivets and a riveting tool, but for the life of me I couldn't figure out how is this supposed to work. I mean, it seems simple enough, but the tool wouldn't work and it got stuck every time, so I abandoned the idea in favor of plastic rivet style pins, which I also bought, but again, they ended up too big, so in the end I just cut some plastic tube into small circles and glued them where they're supposed to be. Someday I'll come back to that rivet nonsense and try to use it properly, but it is not this day. For the rivets on the inside, I used a paper rod cut into some small discs. Whatever looks the part will do. Next came those side dinghies. Of those I actually am really curious as to what they are supposed to be. Are they sensors of some kind? Are they manipulators? Cameras? Streaming microphones? Who knows? But the design is quite elaborate and was not that easy to reproduce. I had to do some serious brainstorming to find the pieces. The base is just a plastic cut from a laundry gel container. Again, the shape was eyeballed. Who needs measurements, right? To start with the actual apparatus part, I found a small thing with a screw in it, which I saved for later, and used some plastic cotton swab rods, which are apparently in high demand right now. Good thing I saved a box for occasions just like that. After attaching them to the thing, I added a knockoff Lego piece, some more tubes, and joined them with another knockoff Lego. The maker of this program would like to assure that no real Legos were harmed in the making of this video. Then I added a piece from an air freshener spray and a CA glue punching nib, and after that I glued all of that to the base. Now comes the tricky part. I did bend the base plate beforehand, so another rod would come through the bottom. Then I added a piece from an old razor and finished with some washers, a nut and a screw I saved earlier. I glued another boot Lego, courtesy of Greg Johnson, pieces, which were the perfect shape for that part. And then made the last pieces out of a cheap bulldozer toy. I glued another piece of tube to the end and screwed in some leftover bolts I had from my R2 model. After gluing that with the rest, that part was finally done. I noticed that quite late in the process and I could have left it out, but my need to make this as close as possible to the real deal slapped me in the face screaming, "Do it, you coward!" so I had no choice. I must admit that every step that requires me to alter something that was already built scares the living shit out of me. In this case, I have to cut a bit of the backplate in order to install the inner oculars, and I was scared I would mess something up. As it turned out, it wasn't that bad, although if not for the rotary tool, this would be a major pain. I used another pair of swimming goggles and cut the front out of them because it made those pieces fit better with the cavities I cut in the helmet. After gluing both of them, I added some EVA foam around them to unify the look and close some gaps. As the last step, I glued the foam from the first pair, the green ones, to finish it off. The last step before painting was to add 4 latches sitting at the top of the headpiece. I found this toy in a thrift shop a couple of years ago and I took it because it resembles a lightsaber kinda, but in reality I have no idea from what show or franchise it is. If you know, leave a comment, it kills me not to know. Anyway, the toy has those elements that look very close to the real thing, so I cut them out and added some foam and gemstones before gluing it to the helmet, and with that done, the building part is done. Well, almost. Painting this was a pure joy. I started as always with a black primer, followed by aggressive dry brushing with silver paint. I painted the side gribblies separately because it's easier this way than to trying to do it with them already attached. Then I painted some of the elements with my gold oil pen, which is nearing its isekai period, so note to self to buy a new one soon. Next, some more aggressive dry brushing on the actual headpiece, but leaving the head plates for now. That makeup brush worked perfectly with this, by the way. After that base coat of silver, I made a brown color using a mix of red, yellow and black, and then combining it with the silver. That way it's not only brown, but it's metallic brown. I think I managed to get pretty close with the color here, and I'm very pleased with how it ended up looking. Best paint job yet. Next, I used various amounts of silver and black splotches, dots, leaks, etc. to give this a really worn out look. At the last moment I noticed that the plate behind the scopes was supposed to be in this brassy color, so I drained the last juices out of my trusty gold pen and painted the piece accordingly, as well as the ring on the left ocular. When I said that the building part was almost done, I meant that I added some small elements here, such as a gemstone inside the smallest scope and one on the medium one. Then I found this washer-like disc and drew an aperture on it with my alcohol marker, after which I glued it in the left ocular. To finish that off, I found some transparent discs from small flashlights, I think, and glued them on both oculars, but I messed up a little and ruined the transparency with glue. Oh well, battle damage I guess? As the very last step, I glued the side mechanisms on their place, and with that, the craft was done.
It hasn't been easy, but after much effort, here we finally are. I'm the one who planted that body. I'm the one that brought you here. I know now that you're the one that I've been searching for. The special one, the chosen one. Miss Ashcroft.
So, what do you think? In case you were wondering, that was my cat Behemoth. He says hi. But apart from that, I will be really glad to read your comments with your thoughts about this build, or other things if you like to share. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't already. Subscribe, as Dan Does would say. Wow, 3 shoutouts in one video, that must be a record. But then again, crafters on YouTube have a rough time now, so it can't hurt spreading some love to their work. Anyway, that's all from me today. Have a nice coffee and stay hydrated. Bye!